Sign 9 was where ships came to die. Twin suns pinned the desert in place, boiling the air until it shimmered like liquid glass. Half-buried wrecks littered the dunes, freighters, cruisers, or hulks, picked clean by time and scavengers until only metal skeletons remained. No law, no mercy, just heat and silence. Kyle walked anyway. Each step dragged sand into his boots. His rebreather wheezed, fighting the planet's poisoned air, while his cybernetic eyes swept the horizon in layered scans. Radiation ghosts, metal signatures, faint energy echoes buried deep, too deep for junk. That was the one that mattered. Just one good haul, he muttered. Then I'm gone. 3 days tracking the signal, 3 days of storms and false leads. Whatever lay beneath this dune wasn't a common wreck. Power that old shouldn't still be alive. His scanner chirped sharply. Kyle stopped. There, under the sand, clean lines, reinforced hull, military-grade alloys that shouldn't exist anymore. His pulse quickened. Pre-collapse tech. The kind corporations killed for. Hours later, his exoarm tore through compacted sand and struck metal. Not corroded, not cracked, perfect. That scared him more than the heat. The hatch hissed open, exhaling stale air like a breath held for centuries. Kyle waited for toxin readings, then descended into darkness. Lights flickered on as his boots touched the deck. The corridor was intact. Too intact. Emergency systems woke as if they'd been waiting. This wasn't a derelict. It was sleeping. Kyle moved carefully, following instinct and experience toward the ship's core. Military layout, but altered. Reinforced in the wrong places. Hidden conduits. Systems layered over systems. Then the cockpit came alive. Panels flared. Holograms snapped into existence. The deck vibrated under his feet. A voice echoed through the chamber. Biometric confirmation complete. Welcome back, Admiral Cross. Kyle froze. What? His breath fogged the air. No, you've got the wrong... 502 standard years since last command authorization. Movement stirred in the shadows. A figure stepped forward, tall, silent, dangerous. Blue skin like a twilight sky, silver eyes burning with fury, an energy blade ignited in her hand. You defile sacred ground, she said, and the ship calls you by the name of a dead god. Kyle slowly raised his hands, and above them something massive began to descend from the sky. The ship knew his blood, and someone else knew where he was. The alarm screamed before either of them moved. Red light flooded the cockpit as external sensors flared to life. Kyle turned just in time to see the holographic feed, black-hulled, ships cutting through, Cyan 9's atmosphere, corporate insignia sharp against the sandstorm haze. Exogen. Kyle swore under his breath. That's bad. The blue-skinned woman didn't argue. She deactivated her blade and moved with sudden urgency. They cannot take this vessel. What is this vessel? Kyle demanded. She ignored the question, sliding into the pilot's seat like it belonged to her. The controls responded instantly. Kyle stared. You know how to fly it? I was born to, she snapped. Unlike you, false admiral. Cutting sounds echoed above them. Hull breach tools biting into ancient metal. She turned sharply. The ship recognizes you. That matters. Place your hand on the command console. I don't... Now. Kyle obeyed. The moment his palm touched the surface, the ship answered. Power surged. Systems rerouted. The deck hummed with awakening strength. Command authority acknowledged. Kyle staggered as images slammed into his mind, corridors burning, voices shouting. Orders screamed in a language he'd never learned but somehow understood. Redirect auxiliary power, he gasped. Main thrusters, now. The woman stared at him in shock but executed the command. The ship roared. Sand exploded outward as the vessel tore free from its grave, erupting into the sky just as Exogen troops scattered below. Kyle barely held onto the seat as gravity twisted. Weapons fire struck the hull. They broke atmosphere under fire, shields screaming in protest. Who are you? The woman demanded over the alarms. Kyle, he said. Just Kyle. Her jaw tightened. I am Kira, guardian of the ship. Another blast rocked them. Kyle's vision blurred. Another memory surfaced, sharp and precise. Aft shields, he said without thinking. Now. She obeyed. The shot glanced off harmlessly. Silence followed, then understanding. You're synchronizing, Kira whispered. The Admiral's imprint. It's waking. Kyle swallowed. I don't want it, he said. The stars stretched as they jumped blindly into the void. and something inside him answered anyway. The ship wasn't mistaking him. It was merging with him. They hid in silence among unfamiliar stars. The ship drifted wounded but alive, systems barely holding together. Kyle sat strapped into the co-pilot's seat, hands shaking not from fear, but from what kept surfacing in his mind, memories that weren't his. Kira finally broke the silence. "You deserve the truth." She led him deep into the ship, past corridors that seemed to recognize his presence. Doors opened before he touched them. Lights followed his steps. They reached a sealed chamber. Kyle placed his hand on the scanner without thinking. Admiral Cross verified. The doors opened. Kyle stopped breathing. Rows upon rows of cryopods stretched into the darkness. Thousands. Inside each, beings. Not human. Not alike, suspended in glowing stasis. Refugees, Kira said softly. The last of their species. Kyle's chest tightened. "This isn't a warship." "No," she replied. "It's an Ark." The truth hit him like a physical blow. Admiral Cross hadn't stolen the ship for power. He'd stolen it to save those the galaxy had decided weren't worth saving. And Exogen? "They'll harvest them," Kira said coldly. "Turn extinction into profit." Another memory surged. Cross standing alone against a council, defying orders, choosing betrayal over genocide. Kyle staggered. "I can feel him," he whispered. "He's not gone." Kira watched him carefully. "The longer you stay bonded, the more he becomes part of you." An alarm howled through the chamber. Multiple hostile vessels detected. Exogen again. Kyle clenched his fists. He wasn't a hero, wasn't a leader, wasn't an admiral. But he looked at the sleeping faces of the condemned and made a decision. "No one takes them," he said. Kira met his eyes. "Then you'll have to become more than a scavenger." Kyle turned back toward the bridge, toward the fight, toward the past trying to claim him, and toward a future that would not stay buried. To save them, Kyle would have to let the Admiral in, and that might cost him himself. Kyle's palm left the console, but the ship didn't forget him. Lights continued to wake in controlled sequences, not chaotic, deliberate, like a veteran stretching muscles that hadn't moved in centuries. The bridge hummed with power that felt attentive. Kira noticed first. "The Nemesis doesn't do partial recognition," she said carefully. "Once it accepts a commander, it begins alignment." "Alignment with what?" Kyle asked. Her silver eyes stayed on the console. "With war." The hull shook as cutting torches breached the upper decks. Exogen forces were inside now, efficient, methodical. Not raiders, collectors. Kyle's wrist implant pinged again. But this time the data wasn't coming from his scanner. It was coming from the ship. Corridors unfolded in his mind. Power junctions. Emergency bulkheads. Blind angles in the hull where boarding teams would funnel without realizing it. He hadn't studied schematics. He remembered them. "I can slow them," he said. Kira snapped her head toward him. "You can't." The internal defense grid was stripped centuries ago. Kyle was already moving. He crossed the bridge, fingers flying over a secondary panel that shouldn't have responded to him but did. The interface shifted languages mid-command, adapting to him, not the other way around. "Nemesis," he said, voice steady despite the pounding in his skull. "Localize hostile biometrics. Activate containment protocols only. No lethal measures." There was a pause, too long. Then, "Command pattern verified." The deck shuddered again, not from impact but from control. On internal feeds, Exogen soldiers froze mid-step as translucent fields snapped into place around them. Not stasis. Not paralysis. Isolation. They shouted, fired. Their weapons splashed uselessly against invisible barriers. Kira stared. That system was classified even during the expansion era. Kyle swallowed. His hands were shaking now. "Yeah, I know." And that scared him more than the soldiers. Another memory surfaced, an older one. A council chamber. Raised voices. A man slamming his palm on a table, shouting that containment was always the first step to genocide. Kyle gasped, breaking the connection. The ship powered down the grid automatically. Kira grabbed his arm. "You didn't just issue commands. You argued with the ship." "I didn't mean to," Kyle said. Above them, something heavier breached the hull. Exogen hadn't come for the ship. They'd come for him. And deep in the ship's core, a subsystem labeled Nexus shifted from dormant to pending. They didn't have time to celebrate survival. Exogen adapted fast. Heavy units replaced the trapped boarding teams, gene-modded, shock troops in null-field armor, designed to counter ancient tech. The Nemesis's sensors tracked them automatically, feeding Kyle threat projections he hadn't asked for. Didn't need to. They're not trying to kill us, Kyle said. Kira looked at the data, jaw tightening. They never do. The ship lurched as external clamps locked onto the hull. A forced docking maneuver. Aggressive, expensive, confident. They're taking us apart piece by piece, Kira said. Unless Kyle became something he wasn't. The bridge lights dimmed. A single console rose from the deck between them, unfamiliar even to Kira. Blood-red glyphs scrolled across it. Genetic resonance check, the ship announced. Primary lineage deviation detected. Secondary confirmation required. Kyle stared at his own reflection in the glass. Lineage? Kira's voice was quiet now. Admiral Cross never had children. Officially. The console opened with a hiss, revealing a recessed biometric plate. Old personal. Kyle placed his hand down. Pain flared, not physical but cognitive. His vision fractured into overlapping timelines. Battles he hadn't fought. Orders he hadn't given. A fleet burning because someone followed protocol instead of conscience. The ship spoke again. Blood match confirmed. Neural imprint synchronization initiated at 5%. Kyle ripped his hand away. Stop it, he snapped. The ship obeyed, barely. Kira stared at him like she was seeing a weapon decide whether it wanted to exist. You're not just compatible. You're a continuation. Kyle exhaled slowly. Then here's the deal. I don't become him. I borrow what I need. Exogen command channels suddenly cut through the bridge speakers. Kyle Hale, a voice said, calm and amused. Or should we say, Cross? Kira swore. The voice continued. You're standing on a grave full of stolen civilizations. That ship belongs to us now. Kyle leaned toward the mic. No, he said. It belongs to the people you erased. Silence, then laughter. Good, the voice replied. That means you've started remembering. The clamps began tearing into the hull. The Nemesis rerouted power without being told. Kyle felt it waiting. And somewhere beneath the ship, thousands of cryopods pulsed as if reacting to his heartbeat. Kira led him below the spine decks. Past sealed corridors, even Guardian Elders weren't cleared to enter. The ship opened them anyway. They reached the chamber at the heart of the Nemesis. The Ark, rows upon rows of cryogenic pillars, stretched into the dark, thousands of being suspended in blue-lit silence, species Kyle recognized only from extinct database footnotes. Others he'd never seen at all. Children, elders, entire cultures frozen between extinction and betrayal. This is what Exogen wants, Kira said. Raw genomes, adaptive traits, living templates. Kyle stepped forward, heart pounding. The ship fed him numbers without asking. Sonnet 842 lives, 27 species, 0 survivors elsewhere. His throat tightened. This wasn't a warship, he whispered. No, Kira agreed. It was a refusal. A memory surged, clearer than before. Admiral Cross standing alone on this deck, issuing a final order while his own fleet turned its guns on him. If the galaxy demands monsters, then let it choke on my mercy. Kyle doubled over. Kira caught him. The synchronization is accelerating. I know, he said, but I also know something else. He looked at the pods. They're not cargo. They're leverage. She frowned. Against who? Kyle straightened, eyes hardening, not with rage, but resolve. Against a galaxy that thinks survival belongs to the strongest. Above them, the hull breached. Exogen troops were minutes away. The Nemesis's core temperature began rising, not a failure. A preparation. Kira followed his gaze. Kyle, what did you just authorize? He met her eyes. Hope, he said. And the ship listened. As the first cryopod indicators flickered from standby to active, the Nexus activated the moment Kyle sat down. Cold light crawled up the chair's spine. Thin filaments sliding beneath his skin without pain, without permission. The chamber sealed itself with a sound like a held breath. Kira swore and rushed to the console. Kyle, listen to me. If the synchronization spikes again, I know. His jaw tightened. That's why I'm doing it now. The Exogen fleet was 7 minutes out. Shields at 42%. Engines scarred. No more miracles left. The chair hummed. Neural merge, partial path available. Full integration, irreversible. Kyle didn't answer the prompt. The answer came anyway. Memories slid in sideways this time. Controlled, deliberate. Not a flood. A bridge under fire. A younger Cross gripping a rail, blood on his sleeve. A decision made with shaking hands. There must be a way to win without becoming what hunts us. Kyle gasped. That thought, that doubt, hadn't been in the fragments before. Kira looked up sharply. You felt that, didn't you? He wasn't always ruthless, Kyle said. He learned it. The chair brightened. Systems across the Nemesis stirred. Doors unlocked. Power rerouted with surgical precision. Outside Exogen ships shifted formation. Kyle's fingers moved, not commanded, not instructed. He understood the ship now. Not like a machine. Like a scarred animal that still remembered how to bite. Nemesis, he said. Show me contingency vaults. Hidden layers unfolded. Not weapons. Protocols. Evacuation corridors. Distributed stasis failsafes. Planetfall algorithms designed for worlds that didn't exist anymore. Cross hadn't built a warship. He'd built a survival engine. Kira stared at the cascading data. This isn't in Guardian lore. Because it wasn't meant to be legend, Kyle said quietly. It was meant to be used. The fleet entered weapons range. Kyle felt Cross watching, not dominating, not silent, waiting. I'm not merging with you, Kyle whispered. Not fully. The chair paused. Partial synchronization accepted. Limiters engaged. The ship shuddered as Exogen fired their first coordinated volley. Kyle opened his eyes. Okay, he said. Now we move. The Nexus powered down, but something stayed awake. Exogen is locking us in, Kira said. Gravitic net deploying. Kyle smiled faintly. That's fine. He reached into the ship's architecture. Not deeper, just sideways. Cross's knowledge offered paths, but Kyle chose which to walk. Nemesis, he said. Disperse refugees into shadow arrays. Kira spun. You can't, those pods won't move, Kyle finished. They'll not be here. The ship responded instantly. Space around the Nemesis fractured, not violently, not visibly. The Ark's massive bulk shimmered, then spread. 7 identical signatures bloomed across sensors. Decoys, not holograms, not drones. Localized probability echoes. Exogen's formation broke. What did you just do? Kira breathed. Human improvisation, Kyle said. Borrowed math. The Exogen fleet hesitated, only for seconds, but seconds mattered. Kyle rerouted engines, not for speed, but asymmetry. The Nemesis didn't flee forward. It fell sideways through space. Exogen fired. Most shots passed through ghosts. One struck real hull. Warning lights flared. Kyle felt pain bloom across his ribs, feedback from the ship's neural lattice. Cross flinched with him. Cost, the Admiral's memory whispered. Always cost. Prepare planetary insertion, Kyle said. Kira stared. Into what? We don't have scans. That's why we're doing it. A planet loomed ahead, storm-wrapped, uncatalogued, violent, magnetic fields tearing at orbit. No sane commander would, Kira started. Kyle cut in. Exactly. They plunged. Atmosphere screamed around them. Decoys burned out one by one, dragging Exogen fire off target. The Nemesis bled heat, armor ablating in sheets. Kyle stayed conscious through will alone. Cross offered calculations. Kyle rejected half of them. They hit atmosphere hard. Forests replaced clouds. Oceans flashed beneath broken skies. Then impact. The Nemesis carved a scar into alien soil and stopped. Silence followed. For 3 heartbeats, Kyle thought they were dead. Then life support stabilized. Stasis pods intact. Refugees safe. Kira exhaled shakily. We survived. Kyle didn't answer. He was staring at the world outside. Sensors finished parsing. Class M, breathable. Hostile weather. No dominant civilization detected. A hiding place. A beginning. And above them, Exogen ships burning through cloud cover. They weren't done being hunted. Exogen troops hit the ground fast. Too fast. Kyle watched their descent from the fractured bridge viewport, jaw tight. They're not here for the refugees. Kira frowned. Then why commit ground forces? Kyle felt Cross's answer rise, then stopped it. I am. The words tasted wrong. The Nemesis couldn't lift. Engines fused. Shields dead. They were a grounded relic full of ghosts and sleeping civilizations. Kira armed herself. Then we hold them. Kyle shook his head. No, we changed the terms. He activated the Ark's interior protocols. Cryopod chambers sealed. Not locked, but buffered. The refugees would sleep through whatever came next. Then Kyle opened another system. One cross had never finished. Planetary interface. The ship reached outward, not with weapons, not with force. It listened. Wind patterns, tectonics, fauna, electromagnetic fields. Kyle staggered as the feedback hit. "This world is alive," he whispered. Kira stared at him. "All worlds are. Not like this." Exogen breach charges detonated along the hull. Kyle stood. "I won't be his weapon," he said, feeling Cross tense inside the limits. "But I won't be weak either." He placed his hand on the console. "Not as Admiral, as human. Nemesis," Kyle said. "Teach this world how to defend itself. System shifted, ancient, forbidden, elegant." The planet answered. The ground shook. Exogen soldiers froze as roots burst through armor. As gravity twisted wrong. As the environment itself rejected them. Not killed. Repelled. Driven back screaming into the sky. Kira watched in stunned silence. "You just turned a planet into a shield." Kyle sagged against the console, exhausted. "Temporary, costly, and Exogen will adapt." Cross stirred, approval and warning mixed. "Now you understand," the old Admiral thought. "Power changes everything." Kyle closed his eyes. "No," he whispered. "Choice does." Outside, Exogen ships withdrew, damaged, cautious, not defeated. The Nemesis rested on alien soil, a sanctuary, a target. And inside Kyle's mind, two wills now watched the future. One seeking justice, one fearing what justice might become. The next choice would decide which one survived. Kyle stood before the Nexus like it was a loaded weapon aimed at his soul. The chair waited patiently at the center of the chamber, cables and neural filaments hanging like veins exposed to open air. The machine pulsed faintly, as if aware of him, aware of the choice forming in his mind. "This is how he planned to survive," Kira said quietly. "Not as a legend. Not as a memory. As a continuation." Kyle swallowed. Admiral Cross's thoughts pressed against the inside of his skull. Not words. Not commands, intent. A cold iron certainty that this was necessary. Necessary for victory. "I don't want him in control," Kyle said. "I won't become a ghost wearing my own face." Kira stepped closer. "And if the galaxy leaves you no choice?" Before Kyle could answer, the ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. "Multiple mass signatures detected," the Nemesis announced. "Vector pattern suggests coordinated intercept." Kira's blood went cold. "They shouldn't be able to—" "They're predicting us," Kyle finished. He felt it now. Exogen wasn't chasing randomly. They were thinking the way Cross would think. Anticipating maneuvers before Kyle even considered them. They studied him, Kyle muttered. "That means I can't fight them the way I am." The Nexus pulsed brighter. A choice, then. Remain human and outmatched. Or evolve and lose something he couldn't yet name. Kira caught his wrist. "If you do this, there's no undoing it." Kyle looked at the chair, at the refugees sleeping below, at the stars ahead, hostile, unforgiving, waiting. "I won't let him take me," Kyle said. Then he stepped into the Nexus. The machine locked around him with a sound like a coffin sealing shut. "Neural integration beginning," the Nemesis announced calmly. Pain exploded through Kyle's skull. Not memories this time, intentions, strategies, contingencies written in blood. Plans within plans. Cross didn't try to dominate. He waited. And that terrified Kyle far more. The machine wasn't overriding Kyle. It was teaching him how to stop being weak. Kyle woke screaming. And then stopped. Because he wasn't alone in his head anymore. Not possessed. Not erased. Negotiated. Cross's presence was there, vast, controlled. Restrained by something unfamiliar to him. Empathy. Kyle felt the Admiral recoil from it like a man touching fire. "You hesitate," Cross observed. "And you calculate," Kyle replied silently. "We balance each other." A pause. Then grudging approval. The Nemesis jolted as Kira executed a brutal evasive roll. "We've got 3 Exogen cruisers closing fast. They're hurting us." Kyle stood unsteadily, mind blazing with overlapping perspectives. He saw the battlefield now, not just positions, but intent vectors, fear, greed, overconfidence. "They think we'll run," Kyle said. Kira looked at him sharply. "And? We won't." He moved to the command console. Systems unfolded before him like muscle memory returning after centuries. "Bring us about," Kyle ordered. Kira hesitated only half a second before obeying. The Exogen fleet hesitated longer. Too long. Kyle activated the Nemesis's most dangerous asset. Not weapons, but truth. He opened a wideband transmission. Exogen Command, Kyle said, voice steady, layered with something older beneath it. You're fighting a ghost you don't understand. The commander sneered on screen. You're a scavenger playing soldier. Kyle smiled. No, he said. I'm the reason your corporation exists. Then he transmitted archived purge, records proof of Exogen's origin as an execution arm of the old hegemony, crimes buried so deep even Exogen's board didn't know the full truth. Silence hit the channel like a vacuum. Kira whispered, What did you just do? I destabilized their command authority, Kyle said. They'll hesitate now. Internal verification. Damage control. The ship slowed. Not retreating, but thinking. Cross stirred uneasily in Kyle's mind. You're weaponizing truth. Kyle's jaw tightened. You weaponized fear. This is better. The Exogen fleet broke formation. Not defeated, but uncertain. For the first time in centuries, Admiral Cross didn't control the battlefield and didn't hate it. The Nemesis vanished into deep void minutes later. No pursuit, no victory. Just breathing room bought with secrets that could burn entire empires. Kira slumped into the pilot's seat, exhaustion finally breaking through. You just declared war. Kyle stared at the stars. No, I reminded them they were already in one. Below them 10,000 lives slept, unaware that the galaxy had shifted slightly around their existence. Cross's presence lingered, quieter now. You chose restraint, the Admiral said. Kyle exhaled slowly. I chose responsibility. A long pause. Then something Kyle never expected. I never learned that lesson, Cross admitted. The Nexus chamber lights dimmed behind them, its purpose fulfilled for now. But Kyle knew the truth. The galaxy would not allow an ark full of lost civilizations to simply exist. Exogen would adapt, others would come. And one day, Kyle would have to decide whether humanity was ready to face what he carried. Kira broke the silence. What do we do now? Kyle closed his eyes, seeing roots, futures, risks. We disappear, he said. We prepare. We choose who we become before the galaxy decides for us. Cross did not argue. That scared Kyle more than anything else. The war wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. And humanity was about to be tested by one of its own ghosts.